Okay, I think we're all here, and I think staff is prepared to go. So why don't we go ahead and call the San Bruno City Council meeting of October the 13th, 2020 to order at 7 p.m. May I ask, please, City Clerk, for roll call?
Councilmember Mason?
Here.
Councilmember Mason?
Here.
Councilmember Medina?
Here.
Vice Mayor Salazar?
Here.
Mayor Medina?
Here. Can we all please rise, and Council, if you would join me and each other in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United States
of
America
and
to
the
the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Now we'll move on to public comments for items not on the agenda. Individuals will be allowed 3 minutes. It is the Council's policy to refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Brown Act prohibits the Council from discussing or acting upon any matters not agendized pursuant to state law. City Clerk.
Yes, we have so far one hand raised. Tom Hamilton, I'm bringing you in the room. Hi, Tom. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. This will be quick. This is an item that longtime resident Carol Livingood used to bring to the attention of everyone around this time each year. I would never even attempt to approach her level of advocacy, but I will do my best. On December 19th, 2020, it will be National Wreaths Across America Day. And each December on National Wreaths Across America Day, folks place wreaths at the grave sites of service members across the country, starting at Arlington National Cemetery and across the country, across all 50 states, at sea and abroad, and including the Golden Gate National Cemetery here in San Bruno. And they're always looking for sponsorships of wreaths and for volunteers. And if you'd like to participate in this, they're always looking for more help, so please visit wreathsacrossamerica.org for more information about how to volunteer or how to sponsor a wreath. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hamilton. Any other speakers, City Clerk? City Clerk?
I see no other hands raised.
Okay, confirmed. All right, let's move on to announcements, please. First item is receive update on COVID-19 response efforts. And Jennifer, if we could turn that over to you, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We're just going to pull up the presentation quickly. It'll just take a second. Okay, the presentation's up. I hope you can see that. Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Jennifer Llanos. I'm the Assistant to City Manager, and I'm here to represent our Emergency Operations Center Public Information Team and provide you an update on COVID-19 this evening. Tonight I have a short presentation for you, but there are a few important topics to note. The agenda here on the screen shows the overall list of topics, including our county's current statistics, our status on the blueprint for a safer economy, the local COVID-19 testing. There have been recent changes to that. Play It Safe, which includes information about playgrounds at city parks and the county's Halloween guidance, small business support, and a fall community cleanup event that's offered through Recology. As of October 8th, just this past Friday, the County Health Department reports 476 positive COVID-19 cases in San Bruno. Here you see San Mateo County's data dashboard, which includes a total of 10,601 positive COVID-19 cases in our county and a total of 155 deaths. The dashboard provides a snapshot of data related to cases in our county and is the information that the state uses to evaluate our containment of COVID-19 and what tier we are in for the blueprint for a safer economy. Our status remains in the substantial or the red category. The state recently added a new metric to evaluating data. As I previously reported, the blueprint for a safer economy relies on two measures. That's the adjusted case rate and overall test positivity. That's to determine when a county can move to a less restrictive tier that allows or restricts categories of businesses to operate with modifications. Most counties have significant differences in test positivity among more and less advantaged neighborhoods. And with that said, to advance to the next less restrictive tier, depending on its size, the county will need to meet a new equity metric and demonstrate targeted attention to eliminate disparities in levels of transmission. And for example, in our case, counties moving from red to enter into the orange tier, the lowest new metric, which you see here on the screen, must be within 5% on the orange tier threshold, or 5.2%. As of today, you can see our numbers published by the state earlier this afternoon. San Mateo County meets 2 of the 3 criteria, with the positivity rate and the equity metric both being met within the moderate range. The new cases per day does not meet the criteria, which means we will remain in the substantial category as of now. And the criteria has to be met for 2 consecutive weeks, meaning that we'll remain in this category for another 2 weeks at minimum. As a reminder, businesses can go to the state's website at www.covid19.ca.gov and pull up information on what operations are allowed by the state with modifications. And again, this information is updated weekly. To meet the measures, members of the public are encouraged to get tested for COVID-19. Testing is available for everybody who lives or works in San Mateo County, even if one does not show signs or symptoms of COVID-19. San Mateo County has recently increased their testing capacity by almost 5,000 tests per week. New appointments and testing locations are available from our county partner at Project Baseline, also known as Verily. Testing is available at the San Mateo County Event Center, and that's available from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Tuesdays through Saturdays. There's also a mobile testing site, which is available. It brings testing to areas that may not previously have had testing sites. There's a schedule on the county's website indicating the city and date of the mobile unit. One has to register in order to receive the address, and currently there are dates listed through October 16th, so it looks like they're being published weekly, and the remaining sites are located in Daly City and East Palo Alto. Testing through the county is again available to those who live and work in San Mateo County and is available at no cost to anyone over 18. The County of San Mateo also recently introduced testing for communities at pop-up neighborhood testing sites and priority locations. These locations are identified by the Public Health Department, and the county is partnering with local agencies and other local partners to operate these pop-up sites. Our San Bruno Emergency Operations Center team is currently reviewing this option and is working to develop an action plan. This is all in an effort to continue to meet the county's new equity metric. I also have the 2 websites listed on the screen, and that's where you can register for testing. The fastest, most streamlined way is to go to projectbaseline.com/COVID-19. As a reminder, outbreaks of the flu and COVID-19 have the potential to drain or impact our health system and resources. Medical professionals recommend getting a flu shot each year, and on the screen you can link to a vaccine finder resource, or you can link directly through the state's website, and that's where this is pulled from. Again, that's www.covid19.ca.gov. Your primary care physician will likely also have COVID-19 testing and flu shot information as another resource that's available to many. Next are a few items that many of our San Bruno families have been really anxious to find out more about. As of this past Friday, October 9th, playgrounds at city parks reopened with modifications. The state issued a guidance prior to the 9th which allowed for the reopening of the playground with certain signage and rules in place, which we have put forth. The picture on this slide is an example of the signage you'll see at each play structure, which includes the structure capacity and total playground capacity. The rules listed on this slide, I realize it's a bit wordy, but they're direct from the state, and bear with me as I go over them quickly. They're important to follow for our community safety. So first and foremost, face masks over the mouth and nose are required for everyone 2 years of age or older, with caregiver supervision at all times to ensure face mask use. Not to use the playground when different households are unable to maintain a physical distance of 6 feet or when the capacity limit has been reached. Caregivers must monitor to keep adults and children from different households at least 6 feet apart, so we're really relying on those caregivers to keep a careful eye. Consider coming on different times or days to avoid wait times and potential crowded times. There's no eating or drinking allowed in the playground, and that's to ensure that face masks are worn at all times. Wash or sanitize your hands before and after using the playground. Elderly and persons with underlying medical conditions should avoid the playground when others are present. And lastly, the visits are limited to 30 minutes per day when others are present to ensure that everyone has a fair chance to play. On the screen here, you see the Halloween guidance that was recently issued by the San Mateo County Health Officers. This was a guidance that outlines safer ways to celebrate Halloween and Dia de los Muertos. There are 3 categories or bands that events and ideas have been provided. First, it starts with safer alternatives. And examples of a safe way to celebrate these holidays are to spend time with people from your same household, carve pumpkins, have a scary movie night at home, decorating at home, dressing up, online parties or contests, playing music at home. Some that are listed in higher risk, strongly discouraged activities include door-to-door trick-or-treating and trunk or treating, which is when children go around to trunks to solicit candy. And then lastly, activities that are not permitted and are considered high risk are gatherings, events, or parties with non-household members, carnivals, festivals, live entertainment, hay rides, large outdoor celebrations. All of this is extracted from the guidance that's provided through the county. And there's a source link at the bottom of this screen if you'd like to see the complete list and ideas to keep your family occupied and to celebrate the holiday. There are some virtual activities that the Recreation Division is offering through the city, and so I do encourage families that are interested in participating in something a little different to visit our recreation guide available on our city website to see what options there are, and that's at www.sanbruno.ca.gov. Since our EOC was activated, our PIO team has partnered with the San Bruno Chamber of Commerce and Bay Area Entrepreneur Center, also known as the BAEC, and that's to support small businesses. And the BAEC and other local partners have established several programs to support those small businesses. Recently, there was a focused outreach to engage businesses with a team walking the businesses, the business-saturated areas to survey the businesses and provide information on resources and advisors that are available in our community at no cost. That includes assistance on accounting, finance, marketing, legal, and business strategies. The team also put together a short PSA, which is linked on this slide. If you click on the photo that says Small Business Assistance and Recovery Program, you will be directed to a short PSA, which includes an introduction to the program. The presentation itself and this link that I'm referring to will all be available on our website. And also not on the slide, but worth noting, there will be a San Bruno Recovery and Assistance Program virtual symposium that's scheduled for October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd. The symposium will be for any business owners to participate by facilitating a workshop, recording a tutorial video, and sharing other business tools in addition to networking opportunities. There will also be micro grants developed for small businesses as they adjust and recover and reopen. And information about both the symposium and mini grants will follow. And so as soon as that's available, we'll be able to update that information on our website. And I just want to take a moment to recognize the team over at the BAEC for all of the hard work that they've done with getting out to all of those small businesses. There is a grant program for small residential rental property owners in San Mateo County, and those are impacted by COVID-19. This program is offered through the county, and the application period is scheduled to open soon. The county plans to open the program during the middle of the month, and so that's likely any day now. It's just not open as of today. The grant program is for owners that have lost rental income from April 1st to August 31st. There is criteria for eligibility. Information about this program is available on smcstrong.org, and the program will include the collection of all applications before dispersing grants. So it's important to get the application submitted to be considered for funding. And I bring here a fall community cleanup event that is scheduled for this upcoming Saturday, and that's for all of those that got into all of their closets and extra space during the shelter in place, and they have accumulated some extra trash that needs to be dispersed or disposed of. And that event is a drive-through drop-off event. It is limited to 3 cubic yards per vehicle, and that's similar to what would be included in the bulky pickup. And items that can be dropped off are paint, bulky items, e-waste, appliances, bags of garbage. Dirt, rock, and concrete will not be accepted. This event is limited to San Bruno residents only. IDs will be needed to be shown. Masks are required. And this event is really sponsored by Recology and will be held in our City Hall parking lot this Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Any questions can be referred to Recology, and that's at 583-8536. And lastly, we have here the SMC Alert logo and QR code. SMC Alert is the emergency notification system that is used citywide and countywide for emergency notifications. You can sign up by linking on this page using the QR code, or you can go to our website, sanbruno.ca.gov, and my usual promotion of our city social media accounts. We continue to increase our use of our media accounts, and that's Nextdoor, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And this is to send out messages for both COVID and non-COVID related topics. I would be remiss to not mention the city manager's e-newsletter. So if you're not already subscribed, you can link to the latest edition and subscribe for that matter at sanbruno.ca.gov/city manager e-newsletter. And with that, that concludes my presentation this evening. I appreciate your time and am available for any questions.
Jennifer, thank you very much for the report and the update. We do appreciate it. And if I'm seeing no hands up, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to our next item, and that is item B. This is going to be receive the annual report from the Traffic Safety and Parking Committee, and I believe we have the chair that will be giving that presentation. And that it will be Chair Durazo. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, good evening. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. It is my pleasure as the chair of the Traffic Safety Parking Committee to present the annual report to the City Council today. Can I get the next slide, please? My name is Marco Durazo again. I'm the chair, and I wanted to just highlight members of the committee and members of the larger team. I am joined on the committee by John Lampros, who's our current vice chair, Scott Thomas, and Stephen Seymour. From the larger team and from staff support from the city, Haywan Ritchie, who's a city engineer, our interim traffic engineer, Saeed Bakri, and the recently promoted, I think, Lieutenant Jean Wong, make out the larger team. Next slide, please. Just to kind of give scope of TSPC responsibilities, Essentially, the Traffic Safety Parking Committee, we review and recommend actions to the City Council, and these are include but not limited to traffic calming, parking, and local traffic issues. We also review policies and programs affecting traffic and parking for final City Council action. We always make clear that our committee is recommending action to the City Council, and the ultimate authority and vote does rest with the City Council. So we do our best to be transparent and explicit about that to the community while we're in deliberation. And some of those examples include parking restriction application, traffic calming toolkit, and crosswalk installation guidelines. Dialoguing with the community and letting the community know that we're available, that we're volunteers, and sharing information, and essentially being a conduit between the City Council, the city, and the community is something that's important and integral to the work that we're doing. In the city, in partnership with the city, we do this in a variety of ways. I know mailers are sent out to the community when there's issues that are going to be discussed that are affecting them or close to affecting them geographically. There's all the information on the city website. Staff support contact is something that we've utilized recently, more recently. I know that there's there's desire to have extended conversations and there's questions, and we're clear to the community that we're volunteers and not necessarily always available aside from when we publicly deliberate. But we remind the community that they're always welcome to follow up with the City Council and city staff, who are always prompt and pretty quick to get back to folks. And then these are all additional communication tools in addition to obviously our monthly public meetings. Just to highlight 2019 accomplishments, like a lot of folks in the city, COVID kind of took us offline for a few months, so this highlights just a few months of the work that the committee did. But nonetheless, they include, under the general umbrella term, parking restrictions. We recommended reducing red curb zone on Whitman Way between I-280 and Cortland Drive. We recommended the establishment of a red curb bus zone on Elm Avenue for U2 corporate shuttles. We also reviewed a proposal for a permanent parking zone for employees of the Public Works Corporation yard. And we recommended a passenger loading zone on San Mateo Avenue in front of La Petite Baline Swim School. Continuation of some of the accomplishments from this past year, and under the umbrella of traffic safety evaluations, we recommended minor street stop controls at the intersection of Santa Lucia Avenue and Parkview Drive. We reviewed a proposal for minor street stop controls and warning signs at the intersection of Willow Way and Valleywood Drive. And we also recommended minor street stop controls and other safety improvements at the intersection of Amador Avenue and Del Norte Drive. Traffic safety evaluations continued. We also reviewed proposed striping, modifications, and parking restrictions at the intersection of Pine Avenue and 2nd, Pine Avenue and 5th Avenue. I was actually recused from those conversations because those are close to home, but the committee did good work and was able to move forward on those. We also reviewed proposed traffic calming measures to be included in the Huntington Avenue and San Antonio Avenue bicycle corridor project. Reviews of policies and procedures. The committee spent a considerable amount of work and discussion and partnership with city staff on this particular accomplishment. We reviewed proposed residential parking program guidelines. We reviewed changes to the special parking restriction policy, and we also reviewed proposed residential block party policy. Some of the goals for 2020 is review proposed update to traffic calming toolkit procedure, complete TSPC review of improvements recommended by the citywide intersection safety study, develop a process or tool for tracking items that have come before the committee, and lastly, but not least, develop a process for a more integrated approach to evaluating neighborhood concerns. And this is something that's pretty important to the committee. We try to end our meetings every time we assemble with this information at the end because the community wants to continue the conversation, and we're pretty clear about the guidelines of speaking with us off the record, so to speak. So we're always end our meetings with this information so they know exactly who to reach. They can do it by mail or hand deliver any letters. They can email. And we always very clear about what the guidelines and the framing of what those requests should be so that it can be expedited and given to the correct city staff for action and follow-up. So it's a city contacts, Public Works Department. We share this information with the community. We read it verbatim, which I'm not going to do here, but we make sure that folks know that they can talk to the police if there's any follow-up questions or any kind of context that they need, and we make sure that the information in the emails are provided to them. So to report a traffic engineering issues, contact the Department of Public Works. In city contacts, the police department, we make sure not to call a 911 number, but call a non-emergency number. And it's also very helpful to have, it was very helpful to have Gene Long there because we had police there so that we can refer any of the legal questions to our police department liaison. Was that the last slide? Yeah. So that concludes my presentation for the annual report from the Traffic Safety Parking Committee. Happy to answer any questions from council at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do very much appreciate your time and the committee's effort, and thank you for being here this evening. And we do have Council Member Mason.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for serving. I just wanted to ask if you could select the top 3 most common issues that come to traffic and safety, what would you say they are?
Yeah, that's a great question. Putting me on the spot a little bit, but I'm going to do my best to answer. One of them, and it's one of our goals for 2020, is really getting them organized and really getting a better sense of timeline on the issues that are coming to the committee and really what follow-up is. I know folks that, come to the committee and said, I've brought this several times and nothing's been done about it. There is some truth to that, and there's also a process that we try to be transparent about with city staff and with the committee trying to work together. We're all volunteers, so we're not in City Hall every day. We're just there for those monthly meetings. So I think getting a better sense of what the larger constellation of issues are and making sure that we're being organized so that there's actually a queue in those processes. So folks aren't coming to the meeting with issues saying it wasn't addressed. So I think getting better organized and getting better in lockstep with city staff it's a priority. It comes up, and it's one of the goals for 2020. I think secondly is just traffic calming issues and safety issues, and being clear that there's the engineers have to do their work, and there's a study that needs to actually happen. So I know sometimes the community wants us to move really quick, and this is something I've learned in my time on the committee, is that it might seem rational to put stop sign in, and I think we need it, but the city has to have time to do the study, to do the justification, and to follow the law in order to put these apparatuses into the community. So that's another one that we continue to kind of grapple with. And third, I think is really getting us to be more systematic in the work that we're doing. I know that just most recently we had a request for a yield sign, and it made perfect sense, but the community was pretty clear that might solve that issue, that safety issue at that particular intersection. But adjacent to that intersection, there's other issues that are just as serious. And how is it that we're addressing that issue, but we're not being systematic in our approach? So what we dialogue with the community about is that, that was our feedback to the city. We didn't take action on that issue, but we asked the city to go back and provide a larger systematic framework to that so that we can go ahead and address those safety issues altogether. So it's a variety of things, but I think the most urgent one is, where's the follow-up? What's the timeline? And why hasn't it been done? And sometimes it's a difficult question to answer, but the committee and the city have spent considerable amount of time talking about that issue. And I think 2020, the coming year, I should say 2021, because 2020 blew right by us, I think we do have a plan to get more organized and more on the same page about that. So I think the community will benefit greatly from that.
Thank you. And I would just say, I think as development comes, like, the Amazon and the South Line project, your committee is going to be very relevant in those discussions. So thanks so much.
Thank you. And we're excited to get a new member, hopefully tonight, because we've been down a player, and it'll be great to get a full committee there to do good work for the city.
Thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
My question might be a staff comment or question, but, I think one of the complaints that a lot of residents have is I sent a letter, I sent an email, I sent an issue, and I just never know when it's going to get addressed. So is there a way we can keep track of those things and maybe have it visible on the website so it's like, oh, okay, I see that there's like these 10 other things that have to get addressed first, but my item is there. So thank you, Ivan. Is there a way we can give that visibility to the residents? And then the other piece is on your website is actually having maybe some links to really important information that we can't just make changes. I remember in my neighborhood, we wanted to put a stop sign because I dart out onto a street and I feel like it's like ready, set, go, and I dart across to not get hit because it's a really bad intersection. And the studies come back and there's a really good reason why we can't do that. And so there's a lot of things that I don't think about, and it made sense at the time. So how do we educate our residents at the same time?
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point. Maybe I'll take the second one first is, I think what commonly happens is, someone will say, I see speeding, can you put up a stop sign? And, also myself not being a traffic engineer, I've also learned from the traffic engineers that, stop signs are not solutions for speeding. We have recently, just this past meeting, provided some supplementing information to our traffic calming toolkit that we think will really help to engage the public, get the information out, help educate them on what traffic calming can do and the approaches. And so I think very good work was done by the TSPC members and developing and further expounding on it so that we have a really usable toolkit. And so we're excited to look at that, and you look at the concerns that have come in, and I've directed our interim traffic engineer to look at the requests that have come in over time. And I think one of the first things will be to develop the outline for how to outreach to those particular members, and then develop a plan with a step-by-step approach, work through those concerns. And I think, that does go to sort of your first question as to
Yes.
Timeline and how, and transparency. I think we may need to work with our city attorney and on what we do want to, because it also can pose, a city liability. And so, these are working documents that we are, gathering. And, we do hope that with the traffic calming toolkit that was just, updated, that we can, start into those and hopefully alleviate some of the frustrations that people have been having, because, I think it has been a long time in coming as well. And so, I'm eager to get that rolling. And, sometimes I do have a similar impatience, but what I've recognized in dealing with traffic engineers in 3 different agencies is they're often very thoughtful and methodical and really, really are concerned with safety and not making rash decisions. That, it is a very step-by-step gradual approach. And, that's something that I've come to appreciate and to almost expect, because, I share some of the similar sentiments, but I also have learned from them, what conscientious progress looks like.
Well said. Thank you so much. I appreciate that information.
You're very welcome.
And thank you for a great presentation, too.
Yeah, Councilmember Davis, I just wanted to add, if I could, one of the things we do encourage to respond to this question is, I know it might not be the most exciting meeting in San Bruno, but we do encourage community to attend the meetings. One of the biggest lessons for me as a new committee member was really the methodology of all the things that happen, the discussions, legal and otherwise, that have to happen before a traffic stop sign is even recommended to City Council. So it gives an opportunity for them to hear the report. It gives an opportunity for them to hear the city engineer and the staff. And I think they come away with an understanding of how these things work. And while the thought process might be we need to do something about it, we need to give the city staff and the engineer time to develop a plan and make sure that everything is in place before that happens. So I think it's great for the community to come to those meetings. And a byproduct of that is that I often see as the chair, comments on Nextdoor and social media about concerns of different intersections and stop signs. We really can't do anything if it's on Nextdoor, right? I encourage them, come to do public comment. You will be on the record, and then city staff will have it in front of them for follow-up and to develop a plan. So it might not be the most exciting evening, but it does give a glimpse of methodology and the work of the committee and the city together. And it was great to see you at our last meeting, by the way.
You're welcome. I was thankful for Mr. Mayor Medina for covering on another meeting that I had to say I had a conflict every Wednesday night, so I appreciate that, Mayor Medina.
Okay. Once again, Marco, thank you to you and the committee. Please pass on our thanks and appreciation, and thank you for tackling some difficult things. And though you said it may not be the most exciting, it's important to folks. And I know sometimes it takes a lot to explain and go through the process, that it's just not a quick fix, but sometimes you have to look at the big picture. So thank you, and we appreciate your time for being here this evening.
On behalf of the committee, do I just leave here, and is that how I leave this part of the meeting?
I don't want to say it like that. You're welcome to stay with us. Everybody's welcome.
I'll come right back so I can get out of this here. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Take care. All right, we're going to move on. We have two proclamations, and then I also have one little announcement to add. So I'll go over these. Item C, announced proclamation declaring October National Bullying Prevention Month in San Bruno. So I want to thank all the colleagues in the council who have signed this document, and I will read, there's probably about 7 whereases. Let me read some that I think are important that the council has signed on. We encourage others to pledge to contribute to a community without bullying through kindness, acceptance, and inclusion. And whereas we support others who have been hurt or harmed, treat others with kindness, be more accepting of others' differences, and help to include those who are left out. And whereas we are committed to strengthening the cause, uniting those who want everyone to feel safe at school, in our community, and while online, thereby raising awareness that bullying or negative behavior which infringes on the safety or welfare of students and those in our community will not be tolerated. And now, therefore, I, Rico U. Medina, Mayor of the City of San Bruno, do hereby proclaim October as Bullying Prevention Awareness Month, as signed by every member of the San Bruno City Council. So I thank you, team, for coming by and getting that taken care of. We also have a second proclamation this evening, and that is item D, announced proclamation celebrating Red Ribbon Week, October 23rd through the 31st. This is customary, and I'll read just the bottom portion of it. Whereas Red Ribbon Week will be celebrated in communities across the nation on October 23rd, 2020, to October 31st, 2020. And whereas all those who reside, work, and frequent the city of San Bruno are encouraged to demonstrate their commitment to healthy, drug-free lifestyles by wearing red wristbands, commemorating Red Ribbon Week. And whereas the Red Ribbon community further commits to continuing to the success of Red Ribbon Week. Now, therefore, be resolved that the City of San Bruno hereby proclaims October 23rd, 2020 through October 31st, 2020 as Red Ribbon Week, and encourages all to participate in drug prevention education activities, not only during Red Ribbon Week, but also throughout the year, making a visible statement that we all strongly committed to a drug-free lifestyle. And obviously with COVID-19, things are a little different for that, but important to have that acknowledged as we do. The one thing I wanted to also add, just is in talking to PG&E this afternoon, because I know the red flag warning went out, and it's reported about 1,500 plus individuals in the San Mateo County are potential to have that affect them. These are areas that are east of Half Moon Bay in the hills, La Honda, and Lamar. And so they're the areas that are not listed in San Bruno at this time, but still is a reminder to all of us to be cautious and conscious of that. With that said on that, let's move on to consent. All items are considered routine or implemented at earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested. Are there any items on this that folks want to have removed for a separate vote? We'll go to there first, and then we'll go to the anybody who wants just comments or questions. Okay, I'm seeing no hands up. So is there any items that we need additional questions, comments from my colleagues for the consent? Okay, seeing no hands up, then is there any action from council on the consent, please?
To the chair, Linda is raising her hand.
I'm not seeing it. Oh, I was looking at the virtual. I don't have you all on my. I don't have you all on my screen. So.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll make sure to do the raise hand.
I apologize. Thank you.
2 hands, Linda.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor Medina. I just wanted to ask if we could. I had a couple of questions about the water well maintenance.
What item, please?
That's F and H, please.
F and H for questions and comments. Got it. Okay. So with nothing else to be pulled separately and to go to this, let's go to item F. Adopt resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a 5-year contract with Eaton Pumps Sales and Services for an annual water well maintenance and rehabilitation in the amount not to exceed $200,000 for FY 2020-2021. Councilmember Mason.
Great, thank you. My question is, there's a reference in the staff report to well number 16 being really the priority here. Is the intention to use the $200,000 for well number 16, or is the $200,000 a sum that we're approving for wells as they need the maintenance? Because there's also another well that's inactive, so I'm wondering if that money's intention to be spent on both at some point.
Director Tan.
Correct. Hi. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. Yes, you're correct. This $200,000 will be for well number 16. Every year what we try to do as part of the budget cycle is, that's part of the wells rehab program, we allocated about $200,000 in funding to rehab wells in certain cycles. So since well 16 recently stopped working and now it cannot pump any water until it's repaired, so this $200,000 will go towards the well 16 first.
Okay, great. And then is there an impact on the water rates based on this particular this $200,000?
No, because it's already budgeted as part of the the rate plan, because we've already established the 5 years rates during the rate analysis. So there's really no adjustment of any rate just per doing just this project.
Okay, great. And then just one more comment. I think when the water quality was an update to the plan, it says here that it was completed in 2012 and then it's coming to us in 2021, an updated one. I just wanted to make sure that I request ahead of time that when that comes to us for approval, that we also receive the metrics of those that have already been completed on the 2012 plan, because I imagine the plan is going to be costly.
That's correct. Now we're still in the process of completing the plan. There's draft documents that are coming through from the consultants that's preparing the plan for us. So once the draft document is complete, we can bring that item to council to share whatever the information that's in there and to show you to provide information in regards to what projects have been completed in the the past 5 to 10 years as we're implementing the water master plan documents, and as well as the recommendations that are included in there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. That's all for me. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, nothing else. We're going to move on to, I'm not seeing any other virtual hands. Item H. Let's see, that's the urgency, we adopt the urgency ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on evictions for non-payment of rent by small business commercial tenants directly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Councilmember Mason.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the city manager, and this might also be a question for the city attorney, but under this, now we're looking at an extended period of time that I think wasn't foreseeable in the previous iterations. Can we get a notice to everybody who has a business license that this resolution is being extended, and then the time frame, and maybe even a copy of the resolution or a link to the resolution?
Javon Brogan, City Manager. Councilmember Mason, we can look into that. We will also continue our partnership with the Chamber of Commerce and the Bay Area Entrepreneurship Center, as well as leveraging the personnel that has recently come on to BayRec that are out there pounding the street, making contact with our businesses. We will certainly look into the ability to do a SNP file and mail everyone a notice. One of the things we know is that sometimes those pieces of mail get tossed away, and so we really want to get the information to the Chamber of Commerce and BayRac because they're actually out there touching our businesses and let them know.
Okay, that would be great. I would just comment that on the day that we had the street closure, I spoke with a number of businesses, and with the exception of those that had emailed me during COVID, none of them were aware that this was in place. So it would be great if we can get the word out, and not via email, but actually through a mailer. That would be great. And then my second question is in regards to the request for hardship that's in the resolution. What exactly does that process look like for the landlord to get relief and to request that hardship?
Sure. So we'll have our city attorney, Mark Separano, address that.
Great, thank you.
So thank you for the question. We don't have any experience with that because we have not actually received any such requests. But generally the process would be that an owner can file with the city manager a request for relief explaining, why it's a hardship, and it has to be accompanied by certain documentation that's specified in the ordinance. And then the city manager has the ability to decide whether or not that hardship waiver should be granted. So in brief, that's what it involves. But as I said, since we haven't received any such applications, we haven't had to go through that process.
I would just say, because I think that would be a significant amount of staff time, but if we notify, which I really hope we notify all those with a business license, that we also have a method of having, clearly on our website, the instructions for how owners can request hardship waivers. Just so that everybody's clear on what their rights are under this resolution.
Right, just one other comment, Councilmember Mason, is the city manager indicated staff can look into that. As far as the business licenses are concerned, obviously not everyone with a business license is a commercial landlord. So I don't know that staff has a way to sort who commercial landlords are and who aren't, just based on their business license. But certainly staff can look into that.
Yeah, well, I think to save staff time, I think it's good to let everybody who has a license know, and obviously they're going to know whether they're renting a space or not. But for those who are commercial owners, I do think that you have some landlords who maybe initially were looking at a couple of months of non-payment, and now they're looking at a year. And so I just want to make sure that they are aware as well of what their rights are, and hopefully between the parties, I'm hearing that everybody's working together of the mom and pop shops I've spoken with. But honestly, the other side of that is some I think are just embarrassed to ask or don't know what the process is. And I've seen 2 of those now close. So I just want to make sure everybody knows what's happening and what their rights are around this resolution. But I do really appreciate staff extending this. I think it's needed. So thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
I was just going to say, I don't know if another piece of mail is really going to solve the problem or solve the communication issue. I mean, if we all look in our own mailboxes, I think we're overwhelmed by mail. But I encourage staff, and I think it's already being part of the process, is to work with the chamber and other organizations that can actually have a relationship with the businesses. So the businesses have some culpability on themselves as well, and I think a lot of them are just overwhelmed with a lot of it, right? So there's a lot of information. So what's more important? I think getting them the resources, having a relationship with the chamber. So I would actually kind of like to know is what sort of communication does the chamber have, and what success are they able, what percentage of businesses are they able to communicate with, or that they have good contact information, so we can kind of really funnel information to them. Because I think it's a lot, and maybe there's some sort of, I know they offer workshops, et cetera, but as a small business owner, family-run business, there's a lot that was coming at you, and I know people who are struggling with those types of things. So I think one mail or from San Bruno is just another piece of mail, and the tons of mail we're already getting. But I'd really like to be more proactive with the chamber and other organizations that can actually get out and communicate to them.
Councilmember Medina.
Yeah, I'd like to tag along with Councilmember Davis on that. Instead of another piece of mail, maybe include something in the utility billing maybe something in the front of that envelope, or as you look at the bill to see how much it is, that there's some kind of highlighting that just something short, something sweet about how more information is available, and having some type of metric reported back from the chamber would be helpful to see how much outreach really is being connected. That would be good to know. Thank you.
Okay, there's nothing else, and I see no hands. Is there any action by council on consent calendar items A through J?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Mason? Aye. Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Salazar?
Aye.
Mayor Medina?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Now we'll move on to conduct of business, please.
Item 6A, receive informational report on a revenue participation agreement with Walmart.com to facilitate economic development and additional sales taxes for the city of San Bruno.
Thank you. We're going to turn it over to our city manager, and then we'll probably hear from our city attorney. City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let us pull up the slide and share it. Okay, perfect. So, good evening, Mayor, council members, and members of the public. Javon Brogan, City Manager. I'm here to present a informational report with regard to a potential revenue participation agreement with Walmart.com that staff has been negotiating. I'll be joined tonight by our city attorney, Mark Zaffarano, who has been our lead negotiator in this process. Our plan is to return to the city council on October 27th for action. And again, tonight is really just an informational presentation to let everybody know where we are and what the status is. Really from the outset, I want to say that what you're going to hear tonight and what the staff report talks about, at its core is really three things. The first thing is that we are working to achieve two of our core economic development goals, and that's both business retention and business expansion. Second, we are working on our fiscal sustainability goal, and that is to do everything we can to bring back fiscal sustainability to our city budget and increase the resources that we have here to provide quality services to the residents. And the third thing that this potential agreement really encompasses is ensuring that the San Bruno community directly benefits from job expansion, commerce, and growth of our local economy. And so the item that we'll talk about today is we'll give a brief background of Walmart.com. We'll talk a little bit about sales tax. And then I will turn it over to our city attorney to talk about the proposed features of the agreement, and then we'll discuss next steps. So, background on Walmart.com. As we know, Walmart.com is headquartered here in the city of San Bruno and has been headquartered here since 2012 when Walmart.com moved to the city of San Bruno. They acquired the property at 850 Cherry Avenue in 2014 for a transaction price of $121 million. It is a facility that is over 271 square feet of office space. Walmart Corporation also owns the Sam's Club e-commerce at 959 through 999 Elm Avenue. Walmart.com is one of the city's largest employers. In fact, they're one of our two largest employers. Every year we publish our CAPR and have a list of our largest employers in there. And on top is YouTube and Walmart.com, both having approximately 2,000 employees here in the city of San Bruno.
Walmart.com is currently involved in major tenant improvements to improve and expand the space that they have for their employees at their 850 Cary Avenue property. And as we all know, Walmart.com is a platform that sells merchandise throughout the country. And what we're talking about today is a sales tax sharing agreement that will involve transactions in California. And through these discussions, we are seeking to designate the city of San Bruno as a point of sale for all online transactions that occur within the state of California. So if someone buys a toaster in Fresno or a microwave in Visalia, that transaction will actually occur on the equipment and the resources that are located here in the city of San Bruno. Thus, we will be what's called the situs of the sale and receive that sales tax. And so a little bit about sales tax. When we talk about sales tax, we're actually talking about the 1% local government allocation that is a part of the statewide sales tax. So I think most of the people in the public know that the total sales tax that you pay if you go to the mall and buy a t-shirt is 9.75%. Well, a part of that 9.75% is actually what's called a base statewide sales tax, and that is 7.25%. Of that 7.25%, the city of San Bruno receives 1%. And so what we're talking about is the 1% sales value from the Walmart.com transactions. And what you'll see in a little bit, the total amount of those transactions in that 1% sales tax value is $6.2 million. So sales tax here in San Bruno, the 1%, it represents our second largest general fund revenue source, second only to property tax on secured property in and around the city, and that is both residential and commercial property. It represents 13% of our general fund. The council may remember that when we adopted the current fiscal year 2021 budget, total sales tax for the city of San Bruno is projected to be this fiscal year $6.5 million. It's also worth noting that the pre-COVID-19 sales tax figure in the prior year was $7.9 million. And so the council and the public will remember, due to COVID-19, we did project a $1.4 million drop this year, or an 18% drop in our sales tax. And so with this agreement, we are developing a revenue split to share a 1% sales tax for all the Walmart.com transactions. And what Mark will go through is that total amount is $6.2 million. And the share that we're looking to have come to the city of San Bruno is $3.62 million. And it's important to note that if we take that against what we are projected to receive this year for all of our 1% sales tax, it's 55% of that base number. So it is a significant amount of additional revenue that would come to the city of San Bruno's general fund to provide services to the community. And I'll now turn it over to Mark Zaffarano to talk a little bit about the mechanisms and the court decisions that are allowing this to take place.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, just a brief recap of the information that we received from Walmart.com about why they were interested in designating the City of San Bruno as the center of their online platform and their point of sale for sales tax. It really arises out of at least two things that you'll see on the screen. One of them is a 2018 U.S. Supreme Court decision in the South Dakota versus Wayfair case that talks about online platforms having to remit sales tax even if they don't have a physical presence in the state. And then also in 2019, something called the Marketplace Facilitator Act in California, where those platforms have to remit tax on sales by remote sellers. So what that means is that some online platforms like Amazon or like Walmart.com sell goods and merchandise that are being sold to them by others. So it's a complicated system, but the result of all of this was that Walmart.com told us that they saw an opportunity to reevaluate their operations throughout California and their e-commerce sales, and an opportunity arose for them to contact us and request our participation in this potential agreement. And I would love my slide to advance, but it doesn't seem to want to do that. Okay, so as background, the city did review over a dozen other similar arrangements throughout California, and those are with a variety of cities up and down the state. Ontario, Cupertino, Fresno, San Jose is just some of the examples. There are also some smaller cities. And we looked at all of those agreements, and this was, with, of course, the city managers work on these, as well as the finance director, Keith DiMartini, as well as our outside counsel. And those agreements are with well-known retailers, QVC, Staples, various car dealers, eBay, Best Buy, and most recently Nike. And so when we looked at those agreements to try to figure out what would be a reasonable agreement for the city, the terms averaged about 19 years, median of 15 years. There's one with an outlier with a very long term of 41 years. But the average is between 15 and 19. And then the average city revenue sharing in those agreements, when you work out the math, is about 50%. And that can vary by a little bit up and down. Sometimes there's more upfront, sometimes less upfront. Anyway, there's various formulas, but when you average it all out, it's about 50-50 between the city and the retailer. So moving to the next slide. Thank you, Javon. Just want to talk about a couple of features of the agreement. So Walmart.com would, in this agreement, agree to shift their sales tax transaction, their point of sale, to the city of San Bruno. So it's that 1% local tax that the city manager talked about. It's about $6.2 million. And the agreement that we're in the process of negotiating is that the city would receive overall about 58% of that $6.2 million. And I'll show you a slide in the next slide sort of to break that down. And this agreement does have a 25-year term. So if there's no change to the amount of sales tax over that 25 years, and assuming that Walmart stays in the city, it ends up being about $90 million just based on the $6.2 million. It's important to note that that does not affect the Measure G sales tax, which the San Bruno voters adopted. Those funds already come to the city and are not affected by this agreement. Thank you. So here's the table that shows the basic features of the agreement. You'll see the top line shows about $6.2 million to be distributed. Could be a little more, could be a little less. It's hard to know. It's reported quarterly, but that's everybody's best estimate. And the structure of the proposed agreement would be that the city would receive 65% of the first $3.5 million. So you see the breakdown there. The city would get 2.275, Walmart 1.225. So the reason why it was structured that way for the city is so that way the city has a little bit of a guarantee that it will receive some substantial revenue of that first tranche of $3.5 million. And then of the remaining amount above $3.5 million, whatever it happens to be, the city and Walmart share equally, so 50-50. And so it's $1.35 million, both for the city and Walmart. And then the very last section of the slide shows that, if you do all the math, the percent to city is approximately 58%. So of that $6.2 million, city gets 3.625, Walmart gets 2.575. And then obviously it would change in the future if the tax goes up or down. All right, so we have a couple of next steps for you. There's going to be, or will be required to have a public hearing on this thing called an Economic Development Subsidy Report, which is required by state law. So that's going to come to you at the next meeting. And you'll be asked to review that and adopt a resolution approving that report. And staff is currently working on that report right now. And then the second resolution you'll be asked to review and adopt would be authorizing the city manager to enter into a participation agreement. We have a draft of that agreement. It's currently being exchanged and worked on, and it's not been finalized. So, but we anticipate that by the next meeting, that will be completed, and the city council will be in a position to authorize the city manager to enter into that agreement. That concludes my presentation, and Devon and I are happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Seeing no hands. Okay. All right, and then I do see one. As we know, this will come back October 27th for more formal public hearing and et cetera. Okay, so Councilmember Mason.
Oh, Councilmember Davis was first. Go ahead.
I've got you first.
Okay.
First on the line.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to ask if, understanding that anything could go down, all accounts appear to show that Walmart's Amazon's #1 competitor right now, and Amazon's at the top of their game. So my question is it possible that this amount can actually be higher than what's being estimated over the next however many years are projected?
Sure. Council Member Mason, that is quite possible. The estimate is based off of the current 1% sales tax value of 6.2% divided as shown. And so what has been reported in a number of national business journals is Walmart's desire to invest in Walmart.com and yes, improve their market share. So should that increase in California, we expect the sales tax to increase and thus that number that we share will increase.
Okay, great. And then I just want to, I try not to get excited until there's a signed document, but I do want to just commend Javon and Mark, because I know this was an opportunity that came to us, but the negotiation based on the numbers you're giving us was definitely better than some of the other cities that have negotiated similar contracts. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Sorry, and I was having, I think my mouse battery was dying, so I was trying to click it, and I didn't know if it was clicking anyway. Yeah, I mean, this is, this is like the calm, there's a calming before the storm, and we've been going through the storm, and we're in it, and I finally feel like there's like this light at the end of the tunnel, that I know good things are coming our way. And it's for the due diligence of our city attorney, our city manager, for working on this for several months, and I know that this is something that has taken a lot of your time. Looking at the numbers in the presentation tonight, again, where, the deal that you were able to work and negotiate with Walmart is better than the average by far. I mean, even getting a 25-year term is kudos to the team. So thank you so much, everybody, for this. It's important that people that understand this, that, sales tax revenues have been plateauing and due to COVID been going down. But this is really a needed and well-deserved boost for San Bruno. So thank you so much.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add my thanks to our staff for working on this. I know these types of negotiations aren't easy. We've gone through them before, and I know Mark has put in a lot of hours on this. He's done it on previous occasions, and he's always helped us negotiate a very favorable deal in both cases. So just wanted to say hats off to the team. I really appreciate you guys putting the work on this. It's definitely some good and much needed good news at a time when we're planning our recovery, and this will definitely help. So great job.
Councilmember Medina.
Yes, I'd like to echo the thank yous. San Bruno deserves some good news, and we'll come back here in 2 weeks and get this done and keep our fingers crossed. So thank you, staff.
And I'll add my thanks. But yes, it is thanks to Keith and Mark and Javon. It takes time, it takes negotiations, and it doesn't just happen in a day or two. But I also want to thank Mark, because you were in prior negotiations with Walmart.com when it came to the business license. As you know, when they moved from Brisbane, it was like $35, $50. And what was negotiated some time ago back then was one step. And this is another step. So question was asked about our business partners or in the community, and this is a step in which to assist the city, us continuing to move forward. So thank you to staff, and we look forward to the public hearing on the 27th. So with that and no more hands, item B, please.
Item 6B, receive an oral update on the San Bruno Recreation and Aquatic Center project.
Thank you, and we'll start with the city manager. You can bring in whoever you need to at the appropriate time.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, 1 second as we bring up the PowerPoint.
Hold on, city manager. I'm looking back at the board. There is a gentleman who has the hand up, and I believe it may be for the last item that we just had. So I'm just seeing that now. So city clerk, can you let him in and make sure he's heard?
Yes, Paul Wapensky.
Can you hear
Paul,
me?
can you hear us? Yes.
Yeah, it's about the issue that's going to be discussed on the next issue. Not if you want me to wait, I'll wait.
Okay, about the rack item update.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. You're quick. So yes, I'll keep note of that, and as soon as we're done, we'll certainly turn it right to you. City manager.
Okay. So, good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. I have the pleasure of providing a oral update on the Aquatic and Recreation Center with a number of our consultant partners that have been working on the project. As the community knows, bringing this vision to reality has been years in the making, and at the beginning of 2021, we are excited to be approaching groundbreaking and demolition. And so without further ado, we will provide the City Council and the public with an update on where we are. And so we will talk about design, we will talk about project management, project schedule and budget, and then we'll have questions. And so I will turn it over first to Don Mertz from Group 4, who has been our designer on this project. And so Melissa, can you make sure she and both Kelly Biggs from Good City Company, who will join in the presentation, are in the room. And so Don, I'm not seeing you right now. But you're here. Okay, so Don,
I'm here.
I will turn it over to you, and please begin.
All right, excellent. Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Dawn Marcus with Group 4 Architecture. My pleasure to be able to give you the update tonight on the San Bruno Recreation and Aquatic Center. Looking at the view that's on your screen right now, you can, this is really looking across City Parkway at the new community hall, back towards Crystal Springs, where the eucalyptus trees are in the background there. This is looking into the community hall on the second floor and the classrooms on the first floor. Looking beyond that, you'll see the entry trellis, which designates the entry into the two-story volume of the lobby. And then behind that, you can actually see the group exercise room. And then beyond, as you start moving up the hill, there's our public plaza with our flag, existing oak tree, and the stadium seating that goes up into what I'll call the natatorium lawn there. And the next slide, please. So just to give you a reference from what is there today, up at the top of the screen, we have Crystal Springs. You can see as City Parkway turns into the park, you have a combination of the on-site parking. with the creek which runs through that culvert as it reconnects to the underground culvert, the existing recreation center, and then the existing pool. And so this is just all reference as we go to the next slide. And here we've overlaid the improvements that are planned for the new recreation center. As you can see, coming in off Crystal Springs at the entry to City Parkway, we have separated the parking away from City Parkway with its own entry and access. We have also taken a creek and separated it out of the drive and realigned it through the park to connect the culvert at that new location indicated there. As you go closer to the recreation center, you can see our public plaza where we have the existing oak tree, and it creates a lovely place for all different events for the community to host there. We have an existing redwood tree that is at a secondary entry that goes into the natatorium lobby. And going up that stadium seating, as we start moving up the site, you can see we have the lawn that we'll call the natatorium lawn that really complements what's going on inside the building there. So to the next slide. One of the things that was approved last spring was the exterior color and material palette, and this was reviewed by the ARC and had really positive feedback. We're looking at using an exterior insulation finish system, and you can see the palette really is directly related back to the community input that we got in 2018 when we asked the community what design values they wanted to see in the new building. And so really it's inspired by nature, warm tones. We're using a natural stone veneer as our accents. And then we're complementing that with a little bit darker color on our window mullions and then a wood look trellis at the entryway. And moving a little bit further down City Parkway, kind of standing back by the creek, looking back to the building, you can kind of see the three parts to the building, from the community hall spaces on the right, the lobby with the gym clear story windows raising up beyond that. That's the gym's roof popping up there, letting natural light into the gym. And then we have the group exercise on the second floor with staff on the first floor, and then the natatorium further up the hill. And you can see how we use that accent stone to designate the entry and the community hall. And then as we go to the next slide, we'll move up towards the natatorium. And you can see how we've also, again, used the natural stone to accent the volume of natatorium, really accenting where we're letting the daylighting in on this corner. We have a large opening. It's a garage door, glass garage door that opens up and allows that indoor-outdoor connection that is going to be so lovely at the site, allowing people to come in and out. With an enclosed deck on this top level. The two other rooms that complement the natatorium on that lower massing are the two party rooms. That really is a lovely complement to the activities that are happening in the natatorium. And then again, the same clear story shed roof that pops up to let the natural light into the gymnasium. You see here on the natatorium as well. So really bringing natural light into the large spaces. That north light, it will be through translucent glazing to control glare as well. Next slide. So one of the things we've been working hard with staff and the advisory committee is moving into the inside of the building and doing the material and color palette selection for the interior. Our advisory committee has been guiding us in this selection, and this shows you what the main lobby will look like looking back from the reception desk, back towards the community hall and the classrooms. You can see the stair that goes up to the second floor, which is directly complemented by an elevator on the left side. Again, you can see the transparency of the building, bringing that indoors and letting that outdoors come into it. The color palette using the wood in our vertical wood slats here, and then polished concrete floor, and then for the steel using a nice warm green, which is accented by a warm gray. Next slide is just fine. And then moving up to the other secondary lobby at the natatorium, Again, using our wood slats both vertically and horizontally as an accent material, polished concrete, and then the warm gray. Just to the left that you can't see here is the redwood tree, the existing redwood tree that we are using as a kind of a landmark for the secondary entry. And what else you can also see in this view is the structural framing that we have in our cross framing here. And this is one of the things that we have discussed with staff and looked at using a little upgrade in our connection. So instead of using a less aesthetically pleasing connection for these structural members, we're actually using pin connections on these members, just so that we can allow that transparency from space to space and from inside to outside. Next slide, please. Now from the natatorium, we're looking back to that glass corner that we looked at from the outside, where we have the glass garage door that opens up and allows people to move inside and outside. We have the two glazed entries that go into the two party rooms that complement the natatorium. And then up high, you can see just as the clerestory window is starting here, the first angle of it, it actually continues all the way around behind us as glazing is aimed towards that north light. And then we also have on the second floor transparency from the cardio room looking down, separated by glazing into the natatorium. So a lot of interconnective spaces with glazing throughout the building, as well as from the indoors to the outdoors. And again, this color palette is something that we've been working with the advisory committee on, and specifically in the community hall, which is on the second floor of the community center side of the building. The advisory committee gave us some really good input, suggested that we use the wood floor that you see here. It's an oak flooring, and one of their good insights was to make sure we use patterning in the flooring that will not show wear and tear and will be easily maintained over time. So using the wood slats as their vertical and horizontal accent, transparency out to the creek. That tree canopy that you see in those windows is going to be the trees that are out there aligning the creek and is going to create this magnificent backdrop to this space. The bottom image on your right actually turns around and looks to the second half of the room where the catering kitchen is located. And then moving on, additional comments and recommendations came from the advisory committee in the finishes and the patterns of the restrooms. What you see here is a sample of the community hall restrooms up on the second floor there. And they show really kind of a nice refined palette, very timeless and easily maintained. Next slide. The group exercise room, showing our athletic wood flooring. You can see how the structure does show through. So one of the important things was that our connections be clean and attractive. Transparency out to the street, as well as with peekaboo windows on the far left side, which you can look back into the lobby, as well as back to the running track, which is on the left side of the wall that you cannot see here. Next slide. So that is my summary for this evening, and I think I get to hand it over to Kelly, who is going to give you an update on the work in progress and the CEQA and NEPA. Happy to answer questions afterwards. But with that, Kelly.
Thank you, Dawn. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I'm Kelly Beggs, Contract Senior Planner with Good City Company. As Dawn mentioned, I'll be going over some of our current work in progress. If I could go to the next slide. Perfect. This slide presents work in progress during the current phase of the project, in which the team is developing and reviewing construction documents for the project. The building permit plan check drawings were submitted on July 1st, with the second submittal being submitted within the next week. Pre-qualifications for general contractors were advertised twice, and questionnaires were due to the city at the end of July. The city received 8 pre-qualification submissions, 5 of which met requirements. The internal steering committee has been meeting weekly, and the design team has also been holding technical meetings with individual departments on an as-needed basis. Advisory committee meetings have also been occurring quarterly, with multiple meetings being held in September, and foundation meetings, Parks and Rec Commission meetings have also been occurring regularly. And then lastly, we're happy to provide this update to Council tonight. Next, I'll move on to our agency permitting efforts. As part of the Environmental Impact Report prepared pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, we are currently implementing the project's mitigation monitoring and reporting plan. This plan outlines actions that the city is required to take to mitigate potentially significant environmental impacts, and that includes agency permitting related to relocation of El Zanjan Creek. As you may recall, the creek is being relocated out of the public right-of-way. It currently runs behind parking stalls on City Parkway, and that's to improve pedestrian and vehicular safety, as well as to accommodate the new parking lot and road realignment. So to do that relocation, permits are required from the Army Corps of Engineers, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. All of these permits were submitted in August and early September, and staff and consultants are currently coordinating with agencies on those applications and comments. So the permitting process with the Army Corps is the most complex, as it triggers review under the National Environmental Policy Act. The Army Corps has jurisdiction over the creek as it is considered to be waters of the United States, but the scope of their review does include the entire project, not just the creek relocation. As described in the project's environmental impact report, the Veterans Memorial Building is considered to be a historic structure that is eligible for the state and national registers of historic places. And because of the demolition of that resource, the Corps must conduct something called Section 106 consultation with the State Historic Preservation Office to evaluate impacts to historic buildings and any other historic resources affected by the project. What we've also been asked during the Army Corps review process is to conduct some additional exploration for potential archaeological sites within the project vicinity that could be eligible for these historic registers. So staff and consultants have quickly mobilized to perform testing in the project area, and we have been able to clarify that there are eligible sites in proximity to the project. We have determined that the sites would not be adversely impacted through project construction, and part of ensuring that there would not be impacts, we will be including tribal and archaeological monitors that will be required to be present during certain stages of construction to ensure that none of these resources are disturbed. So moving on to the next slide, I believe I get to hand this back over to the city manager.
Perfect. So I'll pick it back up here. And Don and Kelly and to the entire team, thank you for everything you've been doing. And that was a very, very quick overview of hours and hours of work that has been occurring literally every week. So thank you very much. And so, Council, what I'll walk you through is now the schedule and the budget. And so what does all this mean? And so our prior schedule, we were looking to break ground in January 2021. The honest answer is that has been pushed back due to the continued work with the Army Corps of Engineers, some of the regional permitting bodies. And so we're currently projected to break ground in March of 2021. That said, with that delay, the city team and consultant team have been strategizing because time is money. And so we are continuing the process of finalizing the design package and going out to bid. And we are projecting that to occur in December. And so we are continuing to move forward and, like always, adjusting on the fly. But as we'll see in a little bit, additional time does equate additional money. And so where are we with the project budget? So as the council and the public will remember, sort of back in June 2018, the initial project budget was $50 million, and there was a number of value engineering that actually brought the budget down to that. The grant that is coming to the city from the San Bruno Community Foundation is $50 million. And really, back in both 2018 and 2020, we had a hard reality to swallow, which is the building that the community wants, that the community envisions, and frankly, just to replace a lot of what we have now cannot be accomplished by $50 million. And so in May 2020, we came to you with a budget that was value engineered down and separated out a base building from some ad alternatives. And so the base building was $60 million. That included adding a enhanced community lounge and an elevated walking track, as well as additional cost increases for project contingency and escalation. A number of a number of items actually came out of the budget at that time. One of the things were additional improvements to the park that were initially envisioned, frankly, just because we could not afford them. Other things were done, such as moving some elements of, for example, creating additional parking spaces near Tom Lawler Field was moved out of the direct project construction budget and advanced through work that the Public Works Department is doing. And so while it will be paid for by the project budget, we are actually saving money by doing that sooner and not as a sub under the general for the building. And then we pulled out a few alternatives. One is the outdoor pool. That is a significant benefit to the community. It also includes a zero-depth entry splash pad and a generator. And so that was pulled out and cost $3.4 million. And so the total back in January of 2020 was 63.4. And as you'll see in the next slide, that number has increased by $4 million. And so the base building now is projected to cost 61.4. There are a number of additional project items, 2.8 million, that were envisioned but are funded by other sources. And so we'll talk a little bit about those. And so those have now been added to the project budget, but it's important to note that they're not added costs that have not been accounted for. Another important note on this additional project work, again, value engineering the building, because unfortunately, with what it costs to construct now, we cannot afford the full photovoltaic system or the solar panel system. And so we are providing all the wiring and the design to add solar panels later in the future, but we are working with other partners to hopefully attain grant funds or fund that as a later phase. But it's important to note that phase one does not include actually installing the solar panels on the roof or other equipment, because the plan for solar also calls for solar in some of the parking lots. And the enhanced amenities came down just about $200,000 to 3.2. And there's a very detailed model that we went through with the advisory committee and staff has worked on. But top line summary, from May to September, there's an increase of $4 million. And so let's talk about that, right? Where does that additional cost come from? Now, one, in the model, there's a lot of up and downs. And so what we wanted to call out here is some of the key elements that increased. One is what was added to the budget is this work funded by other funds sort of related to the project, but not funded by the project, and we'll talk about that. Expanded fitness and cardio room. There was empty roof area adjacent to the fitness and cardio room, and we were able to, in the design, almost double the size of that room, providing more equipment, more space, a better atmosphere for the users at a cost of $500,000. Yes, a significant cost, but something that you have to do today if you're going to do it. And the team and the advisory committee really supported that, given that additional roof space that was not going to be utilized in the initial design. There are increased plan check fees of just under $600,000. Yes, this is a city project, but we have to pay permit fees. Your staff is looking into ways to get that number down lower, but that has been added to the budget. There's additional work for the environmental processes, $285,000. The 4-month increase in construction has added approximately $550,000 to the budget, and those in-break frame connections, $221,000. And so again, there's been up and downs in the model. And since we last came to you, we're up $4 million, and this breaks down a total of $5 million in additional costs. So knowing the model between a number of the ins and outs, there was $1 million saved. And so highlighting really quickly the council, what are those additional items that are funded by other sources? A significant number are water and sewer projects. With the relocation of City Parkway or the realignment of City Parkway, we do need to replace the water and sewer mains that run in City Parkway. And essentially what we're doing is advancing the replacement of those pipelines that will be funded by the sewer and water project funds. Next is a traffic signal or roundabout or potentially another traffic calming measure. And this is at the intersection of Crystal Springs and Oak, an intersection that everyone in the community knows well, that even has some traffic challenges today during AM and peak commute hours. And so a larger building will, yes, add more traffic, and that triggers looking at doing something about this intersection. And so we're looking at a traffic signal or roundabout, and we are projecting to fund that through our normal traffic calming and traffic funds, potentially Measure A or gas tax. And so that is called out at a total of $800,000. Sitting at fiber relocation, we do have fiber that runs underground, and that not only powers our rec center, but also powers our senior center. And this project will trigger the relocation of that. And so that's a cost of approximately $155,000. And then council will remember we allocate from the City Art Fund $50,000 to relocate the Blaine Memorial structure that currently sits on a part of the park that will undergo construction, and we're relocating that to another part of the park. So that's the $2.8 million in costs attached to the project, but that's funded by other sources. The next question you may have, well, with this increase in cost, what contingency do you have in the budget? And I won't go through all of these in details, but the point of it is to let the council know that we do have significant contingencies built into this budget, and not only for the design work that is still yet to be completed, escalation, because when we buy a piece of drywall, a year and a half or 2 years from now, it'll cost more than what we're projecting, and we are reflecting that throughout the entire model. There's an empty line item or line item that's not filled in yet because we've had a number of conversations on will there be additional COVID-19 related costs to the project that we need to budget for. We have not made that decision yet, but that's there just as a flag that it may be there in the future. Corporate yard parking, that project has some contingency built into it. We have contingency on those projects that are funded by other funds. And then like every project, there's a contingency on hard construction costs as well as FF&E, fixtures, furnitures, and equipment. So know that this full budget includes fully furnishing the building, not just building the shell, so all the tables, chairs, and equipment, IT infrastructure, computers, desks, tables, etc. is fully covered in the budget, as well as other contingencies. So know that we are building a robust budget to account for contingencies. And so top line summary, where are we? And so this table breaks down phase one. And so to bring the community to phase one building, and that's essentially everything outside of those enhanced facilities, we have a current gap of $3.7 million. What's shown in the table is we currently have the $50 million from the foundation. Currently, we have $3.1 million in park and loop funds, and we are anticipating development-related community benefits to come to the City Council for approval later this year that will provide $4.5 million to the project, and that leaves a $3.7 million gap that we need to still find and fund for phase one. The other work is fully funded, and then we have our enhanced community facilities, that is the $3.2 million. And so there's currently a gap that your staff team is working hard to fill and come to you with solutions for, and so we will continue on that work forthrightly. What's on the screen now is a high-level summary of potential avenues to close that gap. One of the things we can do is issue debt, whether it's $5 million or $10 million. We have figures there for what that estimated annual payment will be if we took on a 15-year debt. One of the things that I'll tell the city council and the community, given the revenue sources that are coming to bear on this $67 million project, if the money that we have to put in is $10 million or even $5 million in debt, we're doing pretty good to get a facility of this magnitude for the community by taking on, $5 to $10 million in debt, if that's what's needed. We also are tabulating residual PG&E settlement funds, and we believe that there is likely $1 to $2 million as we close out that project that can be brought to bear subject to council approval on this project. We have PG&E undergrounding credits that we may apply to the project, again, subject to council approval that we'll bring forward to you. As we know, there are additional community benefits for some projects that have been approved, other projects that are in the pipeline, and we can talk about either partial or full funding of the delta with those community benefits, as well as development impact fees for projects that are adopted and some projects that are very much in the pipeline, as well as seeking a Measure K allocation or loan from the county and a potential allocation of Measure G put there as the last item on purpose because it is the last item we're going to. And so top line summary is we have levers to pull. We are continuing to work on this. Given where we are, it will likely take issuing debt for that gap financing, even if we do decide that we're going to use a combination of strategies, development impact fees or community benefits. It's worth noting that when the city adopted your robust development impact fees, community facilities are a line item in those development impact fees, and so those are meant to pay for projects like this. And so we are working on this, and as we approach construction, we'll come to the city council with a full financing plan for the building to return, to build this asset for the community. And right now, it is our mission to present council with a plan to build the entire building, both phase 1 and phase 2 at the same time. Again, subject to your approval, largely a reflection of accomplishing the full community vision and also realizing it's cheaper to build it today than tomorrow. And so if we're going to proceed down this step, doing it today is much cheaper, knowing the escalation that we will certainly see in the future. Last thing I'll say before I close out is we are also working on a business plan for the facility to ensure that the facility operates where we are not operates at a appropriate level to where it's covering its cost, albeit with some subsidy, because every recreation department has some subsidy built into it, and we currently have a subsidy within our recreation department. You can't be in the pool business, the public pool business, and not have a subsidy. And so we are taking a look at the current subsidy that has been budgeted and building a business plan upon that to make sure that we can operate this facility in the manner in which we know the community and the council expects. And so that concludes our update. And again, thank you to the entire team that has been working on this. And we are here for any questions or comments from the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. And City Clerk, if we can let Mr. Lipinski in, he's been patient and appreciate it. And if there's anybody else from the community.
Mr. Lipinski, I am bringing you over now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for letting me speak. I just got a couple comments. First off, we're going to have this rec center that's going to have, multiple pools and locker rooms, weight rooms, exercise areas, shower rooms. Because government moves at such a small pace, and obviously listening to the brief, the costs are kind of exponentially going north. We don't adjust rapidly enough. You mentioned, but not provided any specifics on what's being done to mitigate COVID or future viral issues so we don't spend a whole lot of money on something that may be unusable. I mean, it's unlikely, but it's possible. You know, do we have a plan B? And then my last thought is to cover the shortfall, maybe you can market the naming rights to cover, you know, like YouTube or Walmart.com rec center. That's all I have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody else from community that wishes to speak? If so, if you could raise the virtual hand, would be appreciated.
I see no hands raised.
Thank you. We'll bring it back to council for questions or comments, please. Councilmember Mason.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I just wanted to ask, I guess, a couple questions. I think in walking around, it's clear that some of the community isn't aware of the magnitude of the location. And so I was hoping that maybe Don, who has been working on this since I was attending as a resident, these meetings, could let us know in comparison to where the rec center is today and the pool is today, how far is that new center going to cover that space?
If you go back, I don't know, Jovan, if you can share the slides, but we actually, one of the reasons we wanted to show that existing slide is you can see where the existing rec center is in relation to the street where the school is across the way. And now if we go to the next slide, you can see that our new building basically sits on top of the existing building and then extends up towards the ball field. And so it does extend along the backside of the park there. But when you look at what's being opened up in the park, it is significant. So from that existing pool that is kind of in the middle of the park and has the fence around it and is this visual barrier, with the new plan, when you push the building and the pool together, the footprint does not become that much larger, but it's all contiguous along the backside of the park. We are opening up the entire park, and the continuity and the connections in the park are going to be much improved by consolidating the building together along this backside.
Great, thank you. And then could you talk a little bit about the idea for the little like theater or amphitheater stage?
Yeah, it was great. We were actually talking to the Lions last week, and they were talking about, you know, how we're going to do our pancake breakfast, the Easter egg hunt, and where can different events happen. And so along the front of the building in that public plaza where the existing oak tree is, SWA, our landscape architect, has designed this beautiful plaza that's going to be able to use for community events. It's really designed with some stadium seating that goes up to the pool deck level, which is about 4 or 5 feet above the plaza level. So you'll be able to kind of use it informally as seating space or program it formally for recreation programs, or use it for community events that can just spill out from the building out into the plaza and out into the park. And so on that site plan, I don't know if Jovan can kind of zoom into that on your screen, but that existing public plaza that has been designed by SWA is going to be a fabulous amenity for the community and really tie into a lot of the events that you're already using in the park. And then the relocated gazebo is going over to the opposite side and is going to provide kind of the counterbalance to activities that happen on your large events. That's that dashed outline right there is the placeholder for the new gazebo.
Great. Thank you. It's very, very exciting. My next question is for our city manager. Thank you, Don. Jovan, I guess with the budget, it seems like it's been obviously increasing, but I would almost say fleeting. At what point are we gonna? I actually am probably gonna request it as opposed to ask when it would happen. But I just feel like we need to get to a budget that we are going to stick to, because we're now 3 months away from the originally anticipated groundbreaking day. And so I understand that this has been delayed, obviously, because of COVID. But at what point are we going to get to a budget where the contingencies I see are built in? And I think the last time we received this, it was $63.5 million, and now we're looking at almost $68 million. So I'd like to get to a point where we have a budget that we're really trying not to go over.
Right. So thank you, Councilmember Mason. A very valid question. The answer is a couple-fold. What I would say, beginning from the outset, the number of $50 million was picked because that was a number that was thought to be an appropriate amount out of the $70 million that went to the foundation. The $50 million number really had no reflection to what it would cost to build the building that the community envisioned, right? And so it's not until you get into the design and start to have projections on what the cost is, and we're looking at almost $1,000 a square foot when you build in all the contingencies, and then we begin to value engineer. And there were a number of things that honestly were left on the cutting room floor and talked about with the advisory committee and a number of the various staff groups. And so part of the truth is we're not able to build what we first envisioned with $67 million. I think the other answer to your question is, well, how did we get from 63 to 67, a $4 million increase? Well, part of that $2.8 million, or nearly $3 million of that $4 million, is actually funded, in that it's from things that were always envisioned to be a part of the budget, but we're going to be funded by other sources. And so now they have been appended to the budget. And so I think that's a important thing to note when we talk about the budget increase, right? Because it really hasn't increased a full $4 million in money that we need to find from May to September. Part of that is representation. So I think that point is key to make. The other point is absolutely time is money. This is a very detailed model that has been vetted not just by staff but by consultants, our construction management firm, and people that have very good estimates on what it costs and what bids other agencies have been getting. The reality is we won't truly know until we go out to bid in December and get those bids back early 2021, what the true cost to build is. And we've already value engineered a lot out of this building and have a contingency plan built in because we have a phase 1 and a phase 2. And so we are approaching the end point of design, and there are contingencies built in with the design budget, where as they finalize designing items, the money will come out of contingency and it will go into construction, or it will go away and the price will go down. And so we're getting there. Understand it's a very, very long process. Understand, anytime you're building these facilities, the numbers always increase. And we're not taking that lightly. Know that we are doing everything we can to get the estimated and projected cost of this building down. And we'll know when we go out to bid. With regard to COVID-19, it was said that, do we have a backup plan for COVID-19? Know that there are a lot of conversations with regard to the business plan that is factoring in COVID-19, but we are also looking at a 22 to 24 month construction cycle. And so the effects of COVID-19, no one knows, but we're forthrightly hoping that as a society, we'll be in a new place when we plan on opening this building in 2023.
Okay. So I don't know that we want to address this today, but I do want to just reiterate, I think we need to get to a budget that we don't want to pass. I just am really uncomfortable with the amounts going up. I will say that in comparison, a park that was built in Burlingame cost over almost $50 million. So I do understand that the cost is high, but I think with COVID, I'm also seeing that it's possible that construction costs may go down depending on where the demand is. And then obviously that's kind of counterbalancing, I should say, with all the fires happening, and then there's going to be new building needed there. So I'd be curious to see where that's going, but I do just want to reiterate, I think we need to get to a point where we say this is going to be the budget, where we are doing everything we can to not pass it, and I just haven't seen any number that we're not trying to pass. I also wanted to ask about the $500,000 delay. So because of COVID, I know Park and Rec services have slowed down, but everyone's working to get, everything's virtual, and I think they're doing a great job. But my question around the $500,000 is how are we at $500,000 for actually delaying a project?
So that is additional consultant services related to going through the environmental process that has been extended. And so it's not a delay in, there's another cost increase for the expanded schedule, right? But what you're talking about, that's actually consultant costs to go through the environmental process and the additional borings and things like that.
Okay, so would that have to be paid anyway? So is it not necessarily related to the delay is what I'm asking?
Right.
Okay.
It will have to be, it has increased due to the extended review period, but yes, it has to be paid.
Okay, great. And then just one more, I think it's more of a comment, but I think that while it seems, that this is moving and I'm excited about it and everyone's working together to hopefully break ground in the spring, I do get a little concerned when I start seeing items being taken out of, I heard the development impact fees, because we do have so many other needs, including the fire department and the library. And so I just hesitate to put all of our money in one basket, if I may say that. This is going to be a great project. I think it's going to be beautiful. But to hear that this money had been allocated in advance, and I don't remember that when we approved the budget, I do get a little concerned because I think every council member probably has different projects that they maybe anticipate money being allocated to. And I don't know if what you said means that all these other projects are just going to be waiting, because it sounds like from what you're saying, all this money is going into this particular project. So you can respond, but I do get a little hesitant because the development impact fees in particular, and I think I've heard before the park fees, which are associated. I mean, we do have other parks also that need maintenance, and I don't know if those are just going to wait while we build the aquatic center.
Understand the question. Right now, tonight, we're talking in a vacuum because we're only talking about this one project. So I understand the intent of the question, and so when we come back with the full financing plan for this building, I think what you're articulating and the other members of the council will be interested in is if we use money for this project, what does that mean for other projects? And we can certainly bring back that information at a top line level. With the projections that we have, the intent is not to use all of our available funds for this project and not to have anything available for anything else. So, but we'll bring back the details, absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you. And I just want to reiterate my support. I know that costs have gone up over the last 7 years. It's gone up in construction and everything else we could have anticipated. But I really look forward to seeing this actually break ground. Thank you.
Councilmember Medina.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation, everyone. I'll start off with, I understand budgets move, things get delayed, environmental could be very expensive, so I get that. So we have a moving budget that's going up. We're trying to control it. When are we going to finalize the funding mechanism? What is the schedule to do that work or approval from the council? When are we going to get it?
So we are aiming for January, the end of January 2021, and that's what we will be working toward, or that's what we are working toward.
It's a schedule. I heard that there were, let me make sure this is right. So we have 8 pre-qualified bidders on this project already?
Yes. There was Kelly Biggs. Take that.
Yeah, and I'll hand it over to Lance Solomon or to Jimmy Tan if there are detailed questions. This is a little outside of my area. But yes, we received 5 qualified out of the 8 pre-qual submittals.
So we have 5 pre-qualified, 8 total applications.
Correct.
And are those names available for the public to is it on the website or have we started vetting those? Well, we got to be qualified, but just to know who the quality of the contractors, the builders, it'd be nice, I think, to share that information if it can be shared.
Lance or Jimmy, could you respond to that question?
Sorry. Yes, sure. We do have a list of pre-qualified contractors. There was a qualification document that they had to fill out, and all the contractors were vetted through that process. And so there are, as Kelly mentioned, there are 5 contractors that have been, deemed to be qualified, and we do have a list of all of them, and also BHM, Lathrop, Olvera, and Swinnerton. So we can post this the list on the city's website.
Yeah.
That's not an issue at all.
Great. Yeah. Just out of curiosity and just kind of, you said a couple names I was familiar with, so it's good hearing those. So thank you for that, the answer for that question. Just had two questions about the actual rec center. If we are going to go ahead and do the outdoor pool, so the schematic that we're showing, the bird's eye view of that, it shows it as a grass area, but the location of that outdoor pool is still on that western side?
Yes.
Pool that.
Yes. And
okay.
We did not have a image of that in this slide deck, but in prior slide decks we have, and so we can send that to the city council.
Nope. That's great. And the community hall space for somebody that had a party and they were dancing, the capacity is X. And if they were going to have a sit-down dinner, the capacity is what? Approximately.
Perfect, Don.
Yes, for sitting at round tables or like banquet seating with space for a head table, it's 150 seating. If you do a combination of like cocktail, stand-up, dancing, you can almost probably increase that by 50 to 60 people. And then if you want like an assembly where you're looking at having a presentation or something, probably 275 to 300.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I look forward to this project like everyone else, and thank you for the presentation.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I also have concerns about the budget. It's a 20% variance on a project, and when we undertook this, it was a fully funded project with dedicated funding, and so everybody felt pretty good about moving forward. And now that we're in a different financial situation, these variances, of course, take on a whole different dimension. And looking back at a similar project that we've recently completed with the reconstruction of the Glenview neighborhood, I know there were a lot of additional things that we added on there because it seemed appropriate, and I don't disagree that they were appropriate, but we added on a lot of things, and the project grew, and it grew to the point where we exceeded all our initial estimates on what it would cost. And it when it was all said and done, I think we were all surprised, but all along we kept agreeing to add this little thing here and this little thing there, and somehow it got away from us. There was a little bit of scope creep, and I understand that costs are going up, and there are some unavoidable delays that are also running up the costs, but I also know that there are some things that we've added here, and I don't believe we initially considered what would happen in the surrounding area with the realignment of the creek and with moving the parking lot. I think the initial estimate really only looked at the construction of a building, and all these other things are definitely important, and they all complement this whole thing, the traffic circle, all of these things, but they are additional things that we've sort of thrown on top of this. And so one of my questions would be, if we were to decouple some of those things from this project, could we get back to something that's more like our original budget, and also potentially avoid some of the delays, especially around what the Army Corps of Engineers do? Anything related to the environmentals of the creek, if we were to decouple that and say that will continue to happen on its own track, but separate from the construction of the building, and would we be able to move forward without those pieces, or doing those on a parallel track with more secure, more well-defined funding, and as well as getting us back on something closer to our original timeline. I know it's only a couple of months, but if something, say if the analysis that's being done by the Army Corps of Engineers turns up some other artifacts in the area, and then that could lead to other delays. And so I'm wondering, could the building itself be decoupled? Is it really tied to all of these other things? And is there any way to adjust for that?
Sure. Let me take the first part of that, and Kelly just popped in because she knew I was going to point to her for the sequel part. Michael, all valid questions. A few minutes ago, staff reminded me that the $50 million budget was actually set in 2015, right? It was set through a community listening campaign and cost models from 2015. So now that we're talking about actually constructing a building in 2021 to 2023, that has to be taken into consideration. We could sort of go back on the process over the last 5 years, but part of it is just that time. The other part is you're absolutely right. There were a number of exterior enhancements to the park that were added. Nearly all were stripped away when we value engineered this building over the last 2 years, going from schematic design to construction documents. The two most significant things that remained were realigning the creek to address a safety issue with the current creek that floods and is in the middle of parking. That is also connected with, we are building a larger building and there are parking thresholds, and so we needed additional parking spaces. And so that gets at your other question of, can we decouple some of the realignment of City Parkway and parking from the building? The answer to that is no. What Kelly's probably going to tell you more articulately is that once you do the CEQA filing, the project is a project. We are currently going through that process. And so Kelly, do a better job at it.
I think you did great. So in terms of decoupling the building from the creek, unfortunately, that's just not something that the Corps will do. They really do think of the project holistically. And I think even if we found some way to not relocate the creek, which I think everyone can agree that relocating the creek is the right thing to do from like a water quality perspective, a safety perspective, from all kinds of vantage points, I think that we would still be in the same situation with the archaeological sensitivity now that that's a known factor. And we also had a really good conversation with the Corps. I think we're all on the same page, and I don't anticipate that really driving delays at this point. The one last thing that I will mention is that the roundabout installation or the signalization of the intersection is actually part of the mitigation monitoring and reporting program and is required by the project's EIR to mitigate a traffic impact at that intersection.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I had to ask the question, and I've actually been asking for the creek relocation since before we even talked about this project. I mean, that's always been a concern of mine, so I was actually really happy to see that was going to be included. But just in terms of trying to move this ahead, I was just wondering, and just listening to all of the potential sources of funding for this, I don't think any of them are really ideal. And as was mentioned previously, there are a lot of competing demands for those funds, and so it would be difficult to figure out which other projects don't get funded so that we can move forward with this. This is going to be amazing for the city, but at the same time, we don't actually have a lot of, we have no shortage of other projects. So I appreciate the answer on that. And one final question related again to the realignment, since it's something that has to be included. I'm wondering in the overhead view that we saw, it looks like the roadway is dramatically narrowed going through the park, which I think is a really good idea. There's a lot of speeding that happens through the park, and there's been a lot of concerns about safety, the children crossing that roadway. I noticed that the pathways that are drawn out, and I know this is probably really preliminary at this point, but the pathways still seem to divert people to the curved sections of the roadway where there's probably less visibility for cars coming around. And so I'm wondering if that was taken into consideration in terms of the safety in crossing City Park Way, if those little pathways empty out or they hit the street and come across, are we taking the visibility of the cars that are coming through there into consideration, and are we anticipating a slower flow of traffic through there because it's narrower?
So I can start answering that question, and others please feel free to chime in. So we actually did have the city traffic engineer look at the site distance, and we have actually relocated them to their current positions, the pedestrian crosswalks as well as the drive aisle entrances into the parking lot, to distance those further from the future roundabout or signalized intersection at City Park Way and Crystal Springs. So that has definitely been taken into consideration. Those will also be marked pedestrian crosswalks.
And I think just additionally, so the curving of the road is also intentional in that it is traffic calming as well. And so the straighter and the wider the road, the faster you drive. And so putting in those gentle curves in addition to the designated crosswalks was also part of the strategy from traffic engineers' input as well as landscape architects.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Seeing no other hands up, again, thank you for the report and update, and thank you, Council Member Davis.
Sorry about that. I was actually waiting for everybody to comment because you and I have been on the subcommittee, so we've been getting updates all along. This presentation was really, I think, very challenging for everybody because there's been so much work put into this project. And it seems like every few months we come back together and we get an update, and there's some other detour that these guys have to work through and another challenge. And every single time they're coming up with additional solutions and how we can work through it and how we can work on other pieces of it so we don't delay the project. That has happened at every turn that we make. There's so many details that staff doesn't have the time tonight to go throughout this project that I'm just overwhelmed on the amount of requirements that you have on a project this size. And so somebody will always ask, God, when is that new facility ever going to get built? When is that new facility ever get built? And yeah, it's a painstaking process, and I think that this team has done an excellent job. Honestly, we got on on with this project way before Jovan was ever even on this project as a city manager, and we kind of had to reset again with sort of new staff and new members coming on, including Keith, our finance director, and Joanne, who was the Park and Recreations. And there's even new people today. But along those hurdles, they've stayed focused and they continue to make progress. And it always ceased to amaze me. At every single one of the meetings, we have representatives as city council members, representatives from the Park and Rec Commission, representative from also the Planning Commission, and we always come out with sort of a unified support and feedback for this team and the work that they're doing. So although in a very short amount of time, the presentation really couldn't show it tonight, there's so much work that's gone in behind the scenes. Just picking bathroom tiles or floor tiles is a process we've all gone through to get to where we're at. Picking wall color, we've had disagreements on the gym colors and the seating and the lighting and the this and that. So much work is done. It takes really a village to come together and to think about all the pieces. And I remember in the very beginning, and honestly, it was a time when Jovan saw my mouth drop, and that is $50 million isn't going to get us a community room. $50 million isn't going to get us an outdoor pool. $50 million is not going to get us an raised track. And I just felt that these were things, and I think the other members did, that these are kind of really important things. That, having a place where people can safely, whether it's elderly people or children, walk 12 months out of the year in a gymnasium and get some exercise, which is so important for the health of so many people. That they won't worried about trips from the roots on the ground or the steps or the sidewalk, et cetera, that they can actually get some really well-needed exercise. The community room that can bring our city together in so many different ways for a facility that doesn't exist in San Bruno, that will be that nice outside of the senior center. And the exercise room, it was a last-minute decision, and I think that it's a good decision while we're in it and we're doing it. We spend that money now because it'll really save us in the long run. And there are a number of things from the generator to the solar that I think should need to come, because if we find ways to put them off because we don't have the funding today, they will always cost us double and triple the cost down the road or never happen at all. So I see how challenging this is. I think the most challenging thing is going to really be for city manager, is really figuring out and presenting a way to fund this that will be something that we as all council members or future council members can actually support. I hear us go back to the Measure G funding again, and I really hate to hear that. I understand it was important for COVID, and it was a unique situation, but Measure G was really earmarked for those things and improving our city facilities through streets and roads and different things and sidewalks and fire mitigation. I think those are priorities, and this is not a priority for that kind of thing. So kudos to the team, Dawn, and you're, there's a group of people that we've all worked with. Fabulous job and great presentation and doing a really tremendous job in sort of explaining the new building, the design. It's exciting, and we are getting there. We are getting close, and so I can't wait to see groundbreaking.
Well, thank you, everybody, for your comments, and like was said, too, whether it's the rec center has been deemed historical, which delayed it, the Army of Engineers delayed it. So some of the things are out of our control. I think there's about 8 different agencies that have to review and sign off on this before we can get to the next step. I think, and again, the city manager has alluded to this, that this is something that comes back to the council as a whole. When we talk about where do we want to go in revenue sources, and it's not that any X, in my world, X hasn't been divided from the impact fees to this. However, in the impact fees, there are buckets, and that's what he was alluding to, that there was a potential of using some of that. But that comes back to this council, those that will make those decisions. So I want to thank staff for the report and updating the council. With nothing else at this time, thank you again for all. I'm sorry?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, before we close out, Audrey Jones-Taylor has been, she's in the center of my screen and her video's up. She stepped in as the project manager in May when the community services director left. And so I just want to acknowledge her because, frankly, she's the one behind the scenes pushing and driving the team, and it is really why we have not lost the beat over these last 4 months when we had a change and shift. So she came in having experience with building large facilities and running them. And so I just want to say thank you on behalf of the entire team. And I know we didn't acknowledge you earlier on, and so my bad, but thank you.
Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you, Audrey.
And with that, we're going to move on to item C under conduct of business, please.
Item 6C, appoint citizens to fill vacancies on commissions, boards, and committees. The City Council met on September 29th and 30th to conduct interview sessions with various applicants to fill vacancies on a number of our committees, boards, and commissions. We have a vacancy on the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, the Citizens Crime Prevention Committee, Community Preparedness Committee, Planning Commission, and Traffic Safety and Parking Commission. And tonight the council will be voting to fill those vacancies. The instructions for council for tonight is I will call your name. I will call each council member by name alphabetically, ending with the vice mayor and the mayor. Then the council member who I name will state the name of the applicant that they wish to appoint. I will keep a tally on the sheet in front of you of the applicants that are named under the name of the council member or the mayor who voted for them. The first applicant whose name is stated 3 times will be appointed to the appropriate commission, board, or committee. If no applicant is called 3 times, the vote will begin again, excluding the names of any applicant who did not receive a vote during the first round. We can do that 2 more times if you would like, if it comes to that. The first round of nominations will be for 1 vacant seat with a term expiring on October 31st, 2024 for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. We had 2 applicants who interviewed with the City Council for this 1 vacant seat, and those applicants are Marcia Glassner and Paul Rose.
And City Clerk, I really apologize, and I should have let in with this. We're doing it this way because, as you know, if we're all in the same room, it's a little easier. Via Zoom, it makes it hard when there's a nomination and there's second, and we're going back. So this is one way for the visual for us all to have it. So I think maybe it gets confusing. So that's why we're here, and I appreciate this, and hopefully we also can all see it together. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No problem. We will begin the process with Council Member Davis. If you will state the name of which applicant you would like to nominate to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Paul Rose, thank you.
Next is Linda Mason.
Marcia Glassner, thank you.
And Marty Medina.
Marcia Glassner, thank you.
And Michael Salazar.
Paul Rose.
And last, Mayor Medina.
Paul Rose. Thank you.
Paul Rose has received 3 nominations. He will be appointed to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee to fill the vacant seat expiring on October 31st, 2024. Moving on to the Citizens Crime Prevention Committee, we have 1 vacant seat. It's a full-term seat which expires October 31st, 2024. And we had a number of applicants and only 1 who was not able to interview. However, he's still up for consideration. The applicants were Jordan Aquino Martinez, Rhonda Collins, Chad Keel, and Paul Wapensky. Mr. Wapensky was not available to interview. We'll start the process with Council Member Davis. Please list 1 name that you would like to nominate.
Chad Keel, thank you.
Chad Keel, thank you. Linda Mason.
Citizens Crime, yeah, Rhonda Collins, please.
Rhonda Collins, okay. Marty Medina.
Rhonda Collins.
Thank you. Michael Salazar?
Chad Keel.
Chad Keel. And Mayor Medina?
I'm going to go with Chad Keel, please.
Okay, Chad Keel has received 3 nominations. He will be appointed to the Citizens Crime Prevention Committee to fill the vacant seat, which expires on October 31st, 2024. Moving on to the Community Preparedness Committee, we have 1 full-term seat, which again expires on October 31st, 2024. We had a number of applicants for this body who interviewed with the council, and then 1 applicant who again was not able to make it. The applicants for Community Preparedness Committee are Jordan Aquino Martinez, Craig Glassner, Chad Keel, Zidane Millie, Raul Nunez, and Paul Wapensky. Now I will note that Chad Keel, as he has just been appointed to Citizens Crime, cannot serve on 2 separate bodies. So I will note that for your reference. Mr. Wapensky was also unable to interview, but he is still up for consideration. I will begin the process with Council Member Davis. Please state 1 name.
Zidane Millie, thank you.
Zidane Millie, thank you. Linda Mason.
Zidane Millie.
Zidane Millie. Marty Medina.
Zidane Millie.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, Zidane Millie has received 3 total votes, so he is now appointed to the Community Preparedness Committee. He will serve 1 full-term seat, which will expire on October 31st, 2024. Now, the next is the Planning Commission meetings. These interviews were held separately on September 30th of this year with the City Council. This is for a partial term seat, which meant that the person who resigned from the commission had already served partway through their term. So this seat will expire October 31st, 2022. It will be a 2-year term to serve out the remainder of the term. We had several applicants for this, and 1 applicant who was unable to interview but would still like to be considered for appointment. The applicants are Stephanie Charambero, Fong Lee, Gerard Madden, Stephen Marshall, Supriya Perry, and Matthew Sum. And Mr. Marshall was unable to interview, but has asked to be considered for appointment. And I will start with Council Member Davis. Please list 1 name that you would like to appoint.
Gerard Madden.
Gerard Madden, thank you. Linda Mason.
Supriya Perry.
Supriya Perry, thank you. Marty Medina.
Supriya Perry, please.
Supriya Perry, thank you. Michael Salazar.
Stephen Marshall.
Stephen Marshall, thank you. And Rico Medina.
Mr. Madden.
Gerard Madden, thank you. So this is going to be one situation where we will start again. We will now exclude Stephanie Cherbero, Fong Lee, and Matthew Sum as they received no votes. And we will go to round 2. Let me find it here. And we will consider Gerard Madden, Stephen Marshall, and Supriya Perry. So please consider only Gerard Madden, Stephen Marshall, and Supriya Perry. Councilmember Davis, out of those 3, who would you like to appoint?
Stephen Marshall.
Stephen Marshall. Linda Mason, who would you like to appoint out of Gerard Madden, Stephen Marshall, and Supriya Perry?
Supriya Perry.
Thank you. Marty Medina.
Supriya Perry, please.
Thank you. Michael Salazar.
Stephen Marshall.
Stephen Marshall, thank you. And Rico Medina.
I'm sorry, Mr. Madden.
Mr. Madden. Okay. So we're in the same boat. We have 2 votes for Stephen Marshall, 2 votes for Stephen Perry, and 1 vote for Gerard Madden. And so moving into round 3, I will urge the council, we do need to get 3 votes to nominate someone. I know it's kind of tricky. but we do still have these three for consideration, so we'll go through the voting one more time.
Through the chair?
Yes.
I am willing to change my vote to Gerard Madden, if that helps move this along, because it seems like we're kind of stuck in a loop here. So since Mr. Madden had 2 votes in the first round, I will move mine to Mr. Madden. And
okay, I will change your vote to Mr. Madden, and that gives us 2 votes for Gerard Madden, 2 votes for Supriya Perry, and 1 vote for Stephen Marshall.
And I'll support Mr. Madden as well.
Mr. Madden. Okay. Thank you. Receiving 3 votes, Gerard Madden will resume the vacant seat with the partial term, which expires on October 31st, 2022. And now we will move on to the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission. Committee. We have 1 vacant seat. Again, it's a partial term, which expires October 31st, 2022. The council interviewed Jordan Aquino Martinez, Rhonda Collins, Raul Nunez, and Paul Rose for this position. Now, Mr. Rose has been appointed to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee this evening, so keep that in mind while you're voting. So I will start with Councilmember Davis. Who would you like to appoint?
Gladly, Rhonda Collins.
Rhonda Collins. Thank you. Linda Mason.
So I'll preface it by saying that her first choice was the Citizens Crime Prevention. So if she will accept the nomination, Rhonda Collins.
Yes, and to confirm, we have confirmed that as the next choice, this will be accepted.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Councilmember Marty Medina.
Rhonda Collins.
Rhonda Collins. Okay, and Ms. Rhonda Collins has received 3 votes. She will be appointed to the Traffic Safety and Parking Committee to serve out the partial term, which expires October 31st, 2022. Thank you for playing, and that is the remainder of the appointments for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That went well in our Zoom world, so thank you for that. But also, most importantly, and I know the council shares this as when we were interviewing folks on the 2 evenings, a lot of folks with a lot of care, a lot of passion for wanting to better San Bruno. So we encourage and ask, yes, their applications will remain on file. If and when there is an opening, they will be reached out to. We want to thank them for their time and commitment to the community. So thank you to the city clerk.
Thank you for your participation.
All right, and so let us move on to item number 7, comments from council members. If you would you be so kind as to raise a virtual hand, and I'll call on you. There we go. Thank you. Councilmember Medina.
Yes, well, we're going to get out of here early. It's nice to see that. I just wanted to remind everybody, I mean, we've been talking about COVID for a long time. You know, continue doing your best, wearing the mask, being careful, and we can still support our businesses. So I just want to make sure everybody just keeps on doing that and doing the right thing, and let's be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Davis.
Just wanted to remind everybody about the fall cleanup this weekend at the San Bruno City Hall parking lot. The entrance will be on El Camino. It's a maximum of 3 cubic feet of garbage, so it's few bags and maybe a refrigerator or an oven, etc. You'll be asked to drop off your own items into the appropriate bins or areas where that'll be dumped. And I think it's a great time for really to clean out your garages and think of things that we can get rid of, and instead of dumping them on the street, hopefully you can dump them at the appropriate place. And I look forward to hopefully coordinating with Ecology again. So thank you to Ecology for hosting this and doing it maybe a couple times a year. So thank you so much. And thank you to those council members, Medina and Salazar and Mayor Medina, for volunteering and helping out this weekend. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Mason, please.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to state that since we hadn't met since these happened, I wanted to make sure I thanked staff and the council for our street closure. While I understand that the goal was not to have a fair-like atmosphere, I really appreciate the outreach to business owners by the Chamber of Commerce. I also really appreciate the businesses that participated. I got so many comments from residents saying they hadn't been downtown in forever, and good and bad, right? Some of that was split into I can't believe how much it's deteriorated, and some of it was I can't believe how great the food is. But the important thing is that we really got people downtown, and good or bad, I think that it was a community event, and people were in their groups, and it looked like people were talking and having a good time. So I just wanted to really thank staff for putting that together. And then obviously business is open, so there was no need for further closures. I also wanted to thank everyone related to the opening of Florida Park. I was able to meet Audrey and just really want to give her a shout out during this meeting. I talked to her at Florida Park also, but also while in COVID, in comparison with the street closure, we've been able to really have some nice community events. The rock painting tables were really great. My kids loved them, put on by Park and Rec. The little goodie bags were just really intimate, and I felt like very personal. I love that people painted their rocks, and then they were encouraged to go onto San Bruno Rocks, the Facebook group, and post their, rocks, and then put them on this little river of rocks in Florida Park. And I've driven by a couple times. It's really nice to see the neighbors enjoying the park. So just thank you for getting everything moving, and I feel like a lot has happened given that we're in COVID, but there's been real efforts to try to bring our community together. So thank you.
And I did see Councilmember Davis's hand back up, so I just wanted to check.
Sorry, I completely forgot until Councilmember Mason mentioned the street closure. We sat here at one of the meetings and talking about the preparation and what was needed for the street closure. And we looked at cost, and we looked at barricades and the need to protect our residents. And I'm just so glad that we have the dedicated staff that actually said, we need to do something to protect our citizens. And what they did, they actually put a police car, and they blocked off San Mateo Avenue with 2 police officers. And they kept the residents or anybody who came in our city safe. And tragically, we've seen on numerous occasions in many different areas, not just in San Jose more recently, but in other communities outside of the Bay Area that have had serious incidents where people have driven and have endangered people that are sitting there enjoying a nice meal. So thank you for setting up something that we knew our residents can come down to and safely enjoy the outdoors. And to comment on Councilmember's comments, Mason, there were people who actually walked down and hadn't really gone down there much and went down and had a meal at one of the restaurants, whether it was, on the 400 block or the 500 block or the 600 block. So, I just think we as a community, and I don't like to talk too much about social media or what I do, but, I put a comment out on social media the other night, and I just said that, San Mateo Avenue really offers so many wonderful things. And we could talk about, the dirty garbage cans or the graffiti newspaper racks and things need to be replaced. But we really have a gem in a lot of ways, right? You can bank down there. You can get your laundry done down there. You can go to, swimming lessons, which my kids all grew up at. You can get a great deli sandwich at one end of the block, at the other end of the block. You can get your coffee at Never Too Latte or at Starbucks. And the list goes on, and the amount of foods that we actually offer they're delicious places down there. So, San Mateo Avenue is a little gem. And let's not forget, a lot of people put in their hard-earned work and try to provide a meal and an opportunity to come in and buy some clothes, jewelry. There's a framing place for photos. So what I say to the community is check out your San Mateo Avenue. What are the businesses that are out there? Before you want to shop somewhere else, please think about eating in San Bruno and shopping in San Bruno. And no, it doesn't have the bouterie that I grew up as a little kid buying my shoes for back to school, but it has a lot of great opportunities. And what happened to San Mateo Avenue can get better. We as a council all agree we need to put funding in, and we need to provide some parking. We need to provide better signage. We need to improve our streets. We need to improve our lighting. We're all there. We need to make sure that fountains don't go broken for many years, that they get attention, they get the money and the sources to it. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and I say, you know what, chin up, we're doing a great job, and I think that it's a great place down to San Mateo Avenue. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So two things. One, I wanted to mention that October, it recognizes a lot of different things, but one of the things that is recognized in October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I wanted to bring that up because it's something that was very prevalent as we started going into the shelter in place and people were in their homes, and we started hearing about a lot more cases of domestic violence, even right here in our community. And so I wanted to mention that it is something that's being recognized this month, and I wanted to also advise the public that the county does have a 24-hour domestic violence hotline that is available. Nobody should have to live in fear in their own home. They shouldn't have to fear their loved ones. And so I wanted to put that out there. The number for the hotline is 650-312-8515, and it's if anyone's interested, it's offered through the County of San Mateo's Human Services Division. And so I wanted to put that out there. And also to end on a happier note, I also wanted to acknowledge that we had a number of firefighters that were away helping our neighboring communities, and the city manager organized a quick little impromptu reception for them as they came back last week. And so a few of us were able to rush down there and welcome them home. And so I just wanted to put a little shout out there to our firefighters who are out there risking their lives, and we're happy to have them back home. That was it.
Thank you. And for me, three things. One is I was, maybe because of COVID, but given a privilege to go over to SFO, to the USO on September 29th. There was only two mayors that were asked because there was only so many folks that were allowed in the facility. But the mayor of San Mateo and I were privileged enough to go there, offer some remarks, which was Zoomed for the most part, as well as cut the ribbon to the new USO that had been done. It's just beautiful. And hearing and knowing all that's done 24/7 and by the volunteers. So they're always looking for folks that are volunteering and willing to, understanding with the COVID, they've taken precautions, the numbers are down, and there are a lot of precautions that are in the facility. The other item is today I offered opening remarks for the subcommittee on the gas, electric, and transportation safety. I was asked by Senator Hill's office to speak, where the members of that subcommittee, or Chairman Hill, his members, and then myself, and then it went into two different panels that basically were reflecting a gas safety retrospect a decade since San Bruno. And basically was hearing from all of those agencies, from the NTSB, the PG&E, the gas industry down south, and having every panel there and then being asked the questions to see what we've learned and what utilities are doing going forward. It was also important to note that, as most of us know, Senator Hill is terming out next month from Sacramento. And this was, for the last several years, this is his doing that brought this as a subcommittee of the Energy, Utilities, and Communications. And he's been doing this for several years. And the unfortunate thing is, once his term expires, this subcommittee will expire. So what I did do on behalf of the city was thank him for being there for us, for the community, and making the strides that we have as a community in the state of California and elsewhere to make sure that this doesn't happen anywhere ever again. But I did want to acknowledge that and thank the senator for all that he has done for our city and our community. Lastly, we also, Darcy Smith, her last day with the city of San Bruno is this Friday. And we as the council and community want to thank her for her efforts and her time and her passion and devotion to trying to keep us on track, keep the city going, and trying to manage and keep all the balls in the air going with the various projects and moving things forward. So Darcy, on behalf of the council and San Bruno, thank you, and we wish you the very best. And I bet you we will be seeing you in the future. So with that, I want to thank the council and the staff, and I'm happy to go ahead and adjourn this meeting to the next regular city council meeting, which will be held on October 27th, 2020, at 7 o'clock, meeting adjourned at 9:45. Thank you, and have a good night.
Good night, everybody.